So under View, if I go View Message Raw Source, it opens up another window which shows you the actual source of the email message. And in here, this message apparently was from FedEx. If you look through the header information, there is a series of lines labelled Received. The bottom one of those, the last one that says Received.
Is 10 minutes going to be enough to question analysis?
It's fine.
Yep. Cool.
Received SPF, not that one, but so that one there has actually come from somebody, has gone to somebody at me.com, which is Apple's website, from unisonplatform.com. It's got obviously nothing to do with Federal Express.
To the stuff you get back if a message is undeliverable.
Yeah, sort
You
of,
get
yeah.
similar sort of scrolls.
Well, you can understand that.
Yeah.
This one claims to be from KiwiBank. Wrong one. I don't have a KiwiBank account at the moment, so that's obviously fake, but received from some IP address by somewhere in whichever country ML is. Anybody know what country code that is? And then it's gone to this address, and then it's gone to the WelMac address, and then from there it's come to me. So yes, I'm not sure what ML is, but that's typical. They come from some totally random address, and you can tell it's not real. The way I usually identify they're not real is to simply look at the links in them. This is apparently an invoice to WelMac for some property investment. If I point to that and just hold the mouse there, it's going to something called szhsxw.com, which means nothing. It's got nothing to do with their claimed company name. So if it was something that I thought might be real, that's what I normally do. I just point to it, don't click, see what it says.
I got that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find one that's more interesting. You have two broken
I've got
emails.
one that claims to be from Samsung. We need to replace your fridge.
Yeah, that one's allegedly from Google. We have sent you a message, but it's actually from actionblog.vibertechindia.com. So nothing to do with Gmail at all. That sort of thing. So you need to be aware of that.
There's a New Zealand,
Different out to me.
there's a website that's supposed to be the New Zealand Google help desk with a New Zealand phone number and everything. It's ancient.
Yep. Now, what was the other one that was a phone call that you had, wasn't it, Reg? It was somebody from Vodafone claiming to be,
A phone call.
a phone call, like the classic Microsoft help desk scam call, but this time it was claiming to be from your internet service provider. And what they did was they sent you off to a W3C validator to check to see if the Vodafone's website, I think, was working properly for you, and it brought up a whole bunch of errors. That's because Vodafone's written their website badly. And when you go to a legitimate, is this website written properly tester, it says no, there's lots of problems with that website. But the way they try and trick you with the phone call is they're saying that because you see these errors, your computer has got a problem. We now need to sell you our software to fix the problem on your computer.
The other thing was that they mentioned TeamView.
Yep.
As soon as they say TeamView, get the hell out of it.
Exactly. What they usually try and do is it's exactly the same scam, they just change the details. In each case, they want to get remote control of your computer.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell from the cases that have gone far enough, what they actually want to do is sell you very expensive software you don't need, but because in the process they get remote control of your computer, you have no way of knowing what damage they've done while they've had remote control of your computer. So basically, if anybody suggests that they need to control your computer, unless you actually know them personally, like me, I use TeamViewer to help people. So TeamViewer is perfectly legitimate software. The problem is that anybody else could run it as well and remotely control your computer if you let them. So if you give them the details they want. My favourite example of this is when I managed to get one of these Microsoft Help Desk calls, and in this call I followed the script. I basically followed along with what he was saying, and I was trying to diagnose so I could, for future reference, what he was doing. He asked me what key I had in the bottom left-hand corner of my keyboard, and it was the FN key, so I said that. He said, then transferred me to the person who understood Macintoshes. So the Macintosh person wanted me to go and download and run TeamViewer. And then I said, okay, that's good, I've already got it on my computer. Oh, that's good. All you need to do is tell me the number that's on your screen and the code. And I said, hang on, you rang me for technical support, didn't you? You need to tell me your number and code. I use the software to help other people. He hung up. So unfortunately, we can't all be that clever about it. But yes, they tend to get angry if you go off script. But there's so many variations on that scam. It's good to be aware of it. Basically, don't trust anybody who claims they need to control your computer. And unfortunately, that extends to companies that you're trying to get technical support from. I bought the latest version of Toast because I wanted to see if it worked any better than the 4-year-old version I had, and it turned out not to. And one part of the software didn't work, and the guy couldn't work out what the problem was, and he wanted to remotely control my computer to try and work out what the problem was, even though I'd told him every single thing that I'd tried to do. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that, so it's unresolved. I don't want anybody else controlling my computer unless I know what they are.
Vodafone as our internet supplier, they did that because we were having so much trouble.
Yeah, so it's got to be a company you
I saw how
trust.
it works. It's really easy, isn't it? You just load it up, and in fact, you just gave them. I had to type in a few things, and that must have downloaded it.
Yeah, it's very easy to use.
When it's finished, does that undownload?
No, but basically if it's TeamViewer, I know how that one works because I paid for it and I'm using it commercially. The version that you run is called TeamViewer Quick Support, and while you are running it, it shows on the screen initially a 9-digit number and a random 4-digit password. The 9-digit number is generated once for your computer and stays the same. The 4-digit one is random each time you run it. If you give somebody those two numbers, they can control your computer while the software is running. As soon as it's quit, that's it. They can't control the computer anymore. And if you run it again, the 4-digit numbers change, so they still can't control your computer unless you tell them the new 4-digit number. So you can actually run a different version which allows you to have a consistent password as well, which is useful, for example, to remotely control a headless computer. I have it on a Mac Mini at home that's on my TV, for example, so I can remotely control it, that sort of thing. Okay, other questions?
Sorry about that. That was supposed to be a quick.
That's all right. It's a useful discussion to remind people of. Okay.
At the last meeting, I mentioned about the fact we needed to buy a new phone. We haven't moved, but the thing that we want to know now, I have a iPhone 6S, and we were thinking of buying another one the same, and that would be fine. But we want to know if later models have a better camera than the 6S.
Yes.
If that's going to be, that could be our deciding factor.
Somewhat better. If you're looking at an iPhone of the same physical size as either a 7 or an 8, that's the same dimensions as the 6S. You don't get the second camera, because the second camera is only available on the physically larger models. So the later physically larger ones have got a dual camera with optical zoom features, so you can basically zoom to twice as big and get more content. So you can start with
The 6 has got that.
a 6S.
6S has got that.
No, not the 6S. 6S Plus has got it.
Plus, you've got the dual camera.
I've got my-
The 6s, the 7s have only got a single
So
camera.
iPhone 10's got two cameras on the back, as does an iPhone 8 Plus, 7 Plus, and 6S Plus and 6 Plus. The iPhone 6S, 7 and 8 only have a single camera on the back. So that's one thing you don't get. If I just go do a quick comparison, I've got the specs here, so we we can clarify. iPhone 6S, 7 and 8. So those are the three. If we have a look at the camera specs and just see what they've changed. Processor, memory, graphics, connections, sensors. I've missed it somewhere.
This is just on the Apple side, is it?
No, this is actually a program I got called Mac Tracker, which has specs of every Apple product ever made, pretty much.
Camera, you've actually gone past it.
Yeah, it wasn't an obvious heading, so I was just trying to find it somewhere around here.
Yeah, you've gone past it. It's down a bit further. Memory, graphics.
Yeah, camera, here it is.
Right there.
So the same number of megapixels, but that should not be regarded as not any better because they've done a lot of other things under the hood. So they've added, it does have a better front camera, every later model.
Looks like they've added with optical image.
They've added optical image stabilization, which means that if your can shakes a bit during the camera, it'll probably take a still photo rather than a blurry photo. It will be sharper. There is, it doesn't show much more than that, but that's just the sort of the headline features. I think they've improved things like the live photos and the other fancy features, and there's better image processing and that sort of thing. So it's all subtle things, better low light handling, that sort of thing. So if you're trying to take photos in dim conditions, it might work better, that sort of thing. So it's not going to take higher resolution photos, but overall the photo quality will be better. And that is a general trend. Apple's not bothering to go with more megapixels because that's usually a less important feature than all the other aspects of the camera. Any other people have opinions on that as a camera person, perhaps, Dennis? You haven't really dealt with them much.
What should you buy?
So, yes, what should we buy?
Which column is
That's looking at the 6S, the 7 and the 8. So that's the 3 to the same size. If you don't want a physically larger phone much, you might consider the 10, which is only a fraction taller. So you want to do a physical hold your phone up to mine just to get a feel for it, so you can see what it's like.
You've actually got the large one. You've got the plus, haven't you?
Me?
Yeah. Look at the back of it.
No, that's the 6S.
6S.
Oh, it is the 6S? Sorry, I'm looking at it
Yeah,
from over
because
here.
the 10 is about the same width, it's only a fraction taller. So that's a 6S, is it, or equivalent?
That's the 6S.
Yeah, so you can see there, the size difference is almost nothing.
Well, there's nothing to it.
There's nothing to it.
I've
So
got
those,
a case on that. But you
yeah,
have
so
a-
have I. So that's a standard Apple case. So the case is sort of neutral, but basically the 10 has a taller screen without being wider, whereas the Plus models are physically larger. I don't have
It doesn't
one.
have the button?
Reg has
No.
got an 8, David.
Anybody who's got a Plus model here?
Yeah, I have.
Reg has
Yep,
got
there we
an
go.
8.
So there's a Plus model.
Yours is an 8 plus.
So you can see, if I compare those two side by side, they're substantially bigger.
It's a tea tray.
Yeah. So I pick up my iPhone 6 Plus now, and I think, oh my God, this is huge.
David, Rex has got the big one.
Oh yeah, there we go. So it's the same. That's the 8. That's the 8 Plus, is it? I think so. Yeah. So that gives you an idea. So that's the.
Yeah, 8 or the 7. You've got the 7.
Doesn't matter. It's the same.
Rex.
So that's the
Yeah,
Plus model.
7 plus. That's the 7
Comes
plus.
quite bigger.
Yeah. So there's the 10 if you just want to
I
feel
actually
that.
thought that SE was quite a nice little size.
Yes. So speaking of the SE, we are sort of thinking there's going to be new models coming out next month. There's a possibility of that for the SE. So that might be a possibility. It's the most expensive model, unfortunately.
So that would be your suggestion.
Well, that's if you want a significantly better camera, because hang on, how does it work with the VR stuff? I think it's the 8 can do it, and so can the 7.
I thought the iPhone 10s, the VR cameras were put the right way for VR.
Yeah, well, that's just to improve it. I think that's what
We're not generally top of the range sort of
No.
people.
But
No.
one of the things that you can do with a double camera is, I can show you this on the screen as easier than trying to put up on the projector. If you're trying to take a photo, you notice it says 1 times down the bottom.
Yes.
If you tap that, it gives you optical zoom, so it's switching cameras, and it's using the other camera on the back, which has got a wider, so it gives you basically you're half the distance closer to the subject. So that's quite handy in some
So is that
cases.
a slightly wider angle?
Yeah, so it's basically there's a telephoto and a wide angle lens. So it's a telephoto lens which gives you the 2 times optical zoom.
But you can still...
You can still digitally zoom, but that's
Yeah, okay.
all of them can do that. It just basically gives you a better quality 2 times.
But
But
Leslie,
you need double
Leslie,
camera.
when you held Rex's one, was that too big, was it?
Or Anna's one is the same physical size, if you don't mind.
That's
No,
the
ours was the
plus.
same.
That's the 7 plus there.
Right.
So that's the one with the dual camera on. So that's the bigger one to your version.
That's a tea tray.
Yeah.
I don't want a bigger one than that.
Right. but that,
No.
So that's a possibility, but it will
So-
cost you nearly $2,000 for the
You're
phone.
better off for that. The 8.
Well, the 8 is going to be
Camera's
closest.
4 megapixels.
Yeah,
But it's not dual camera.
it's a better camera. It's not substantially better, but it's definitely somewhat better.
Nikon, yeah.
Does panorama, and it's absolutely.
Yep. Well, the old ones did that. I can do that on the iPhone 5, so I know that that's been something. Yep. Okay.
Have a look at the back. Sure.
We should probably break for supper, otherwise Margaret will be wondering where everybody's got to. If anybody does have any more questions, there was another email, somebody emailed me a question which I hadn't addressed yet.
They're the 8
With the second camera.
Graham, Cook?
I withdrew it in the end.
Oh, you drew it and you decided you didn't really want to present it in the end. Okay.
I think my conclusion was that Excel on the Mac is a dog app.
Yeah.
It's much better on Windows.
Quite possibly, yes.
And my problem, I think, is I've got a corrupt spreadsheet. I need to rebuild it.
Ah.
Because I tried it on a Windows 10.
And it was
on Excel,
also bad.
It was just as bad.
Okay, all right.
But I wouldn't recommend Excel on a Mac
Right.
for any power users.
Yes, my initial reply to Graham was just asking why it was taking so long to copy and paste something. I said, well, I don't actually use Excel, so we can ask at the meeting, but then I suggested just checking if it was the latest version and a few things like that. And then in the meantime, Graham had already gone and investigated himself and found it wasn't much better on certain versions of Windows, so it was partly a spreadsheet problem anyway. Okay.
That's Microsoft Office, Excel.
That's it, unless we can always, if anybody's got any more questions, I can just ask them during supper, so why don't we just break for supper?
It's good for
All right, so
low
supper is
user.
in the Brian and Davis room. So basically, you've got.
Select all is another one that often people want to do, so they want to get rid of all or something, or number of times I've seen people doing things like bringing up a save. If I could bring up a save window and asking you for a file name, people come in here and click and then start going delete, 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 because they don't want that. Did you know that if you, I'll do that again, if I go save, notice that it's already highlighted? If you just start typing, it will replace the selection with whatever you type. So you can just start typing, I want to call this Fred, whatever it might be. And that just replaces the selection. You don't need to reselect it or delete lots and lots of times if it was already selected. I'm going to use this as an example of some of the common editing shortcuts. It's just a random bit of text that I've written and pasted into a text edit document in case I wanted it later. If I double click on a word, it selects the whole word. If I triple click on a word, it selects the entire paragraph. Some applications that does a line, but in most cases it's supposed to be the whole paragraph. So if there's a whole paragraph you don't want, you just triple click on one of the words and then press the delete key. Or you want to copy it, you triple click the entire paragraph to select the whole paragraph, you use the copy command afterwards. Many applications support drag and drop, so you can actually pick up the paragraph you've just selected and move it to a new location. So that's also a useful tool. And I'll just use undo to get back to where we were because I don't want to restructure this thing. I can't remember what it was that I wrote, but it looks interesting. Don't worry about the text that I'm working with. It's just treated as random technical information. The other keys that I tend to use reasonably often while I'm editing text, if you want to get somewhere in a hurry, you can hold down the arrow keys and sort of move forwards and backwards, and I've got my repeat rate accelerated faster than normal. There's a setting in system preferences for that. But if you want to just move to a particular point, using the arrow keys with certain modifiers is quite useful to know the shortcuts for those. Now, there are some applications that don't follow the Macintosh standards, and Microsoft Word may be one of them because they basically borrow keyboard shortcuts from Windows rather than using the standard Mac ones. So in almost every application apart from Microsoft Word, you can use these keyboard shortcuts. Okay? So if I want to go back to the beginning of the line, the shortcut for that is Command, and again refer to your cheat sheet if you want to know what Command is, left arrow. So there I am now. You can see the cursor blinking up here. That's Command left arrow, so that means go to beginning of line. Command, logic is quite sensible here, Command right arrow means go to end of line. So I can hop quickly to the beginning or the end of the line, not have to go back to the mouse or the trackpad, just by using Command arrow keys. If I want to go to the beginning of the document or the end of the document, same keyboard shortcut, Command up arrow down arrow this time. So Command up means go to the beginning, Command down means go to the end. So that's go to the left, go to the right, go to the top, go to the bottom in one operation. So that's the first obvious one. The next one is if you want to work one word at a time, you use the Option key. So Option left arrow means go left one word, go left one word, go left one word, go left one word. Option right arrow means go right one word. Notice also that it puts you at the end of it if you're going right and at the beginning if you're going left. So it's aiming for the point where you want to probably do editing. If it's not necessarily the right place, like if I want to go to the beginning of the word computer from where I am, I go right, 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 left. And now I'm at the beginning of that word. So those are just holding down the Option key and using the left and right arrow keys. I think up and down arrow look like they go by paragraph. I don't use that one very often, so it's not one I've really learned. The next modifier key to be aware of is the Shift key. While you're editing text, Shift means select. So if I use shift arrows, it starts to select text one character at a time. If I use shift up and down arrow, it selects an entire line at a time, or removes it. So you can use that for selecting a range of text. If you start to combine them, you get interesting combinations. Shift for select and Command for go all the way gives you select to beginning of line. Command Shift left arrow. Shift for select and Command for go all the way and right arrow means select to the end of the line. So if I want to delete the entire text to the right of this point, I go Command Shift right arrow delete. Or missed the delete, Ken got something else, but you got the idea anyway. I'll undo that again. Similarly, Command Shift down arrow selects all the rest of the document after that point, and I can then go delete and I end up just with that bit of text where I was. So that combination. More likely you'll tend to use the Option key. So Option Shift means go select to the beginning of the previous word for left arrow, or to the end of the next word for right arrow. So you can select words at a time and then type to replace them or delete them or something like that. So those ones I use heavily while I'm editing text, and they're not documented in the menus normally. You can go and look them up in Mac Help, but they're not all that obvious unless you're familiar with them from older applications. Those keyboard shortcuts have been there, don't know how long, but basically ever since I started using Macs. So they date right back to Mac OS system, I should say 7 or earlier, if you remember back that far. If you do have an extended keyboard, which most people with laptops won't, but those with external desktop keyboards might, you'll find it's got home, end, page up and page down keys on them. Those keys on a Mac are supposed to mean move the view without moving the insertion point. So home means go to the top of the document without changing where you're currently typing, so you can look temporarily at the top of the document without moving to it. Command up arrow means move the insertion point to the top. Home means look at the top. End means look at the bottom. Command down arrow means move to the bottom. Page up, page down means scroll up or down without moving where you're typing. So you can use that to look at the previous page, look at the next page. Actually, now that I think about it, I thought command up and down arrow meant page. Because is it long enough? Command. Where's my cursor gone? No, that is entire document. Option is definitely one paragraph, and command is definitely the entire document. I'm not sure if there is actually a standard keyboard shortcut for page up, page down on a Mac. I have to go and hunt for it. Briggs?
David, is there any shortcut for changing the uppercase, lowercase?
No, that one's application specific, unfortunately. There is often a command for under transformations and many programs that are based on modern standards, so TextEdit and the current version of Pages will support that. So what typically you do is you select the text that you want, and then you go to the edit menu, choose transformations, and choose the operation that you want to do on it. So rather than, it's not like it's sort of one character at a time or keyboard shortcut for it.
Excuse me, David, I'm wilting, so I think I
Okay.
have to go. And if you want me to go through those Mylans, I'll do that
Okay.
another time.
Yep, sorry about that.
Sort it out.
Go back, have to go out through the Brian Davis room. So the way, yep. So if you want to leave, we have to go up through the way we went through the other room. Somebody's locked that door, so unfortunately we have to do the same when we're packing up. Goody. Okay, so that was most of the editing shortcuts I wanted to highlight. Anybody got any other ones relating to those that they immediately can think of that they want to mention? So pretty.
A whole lot of stuff with little headings, and you decide that you want all the headings to be the same size and font. Can you select just
Discontinuous selection. That one is a very application-dependent feature. It's not a standard feature of the Macintosh editing tools. So some applications will let you do that, but it's not something normally that you'd be able to do, for example, in TextEdit. So I'm just using this as a simple example. You can probably do that sort of thing in Word with some special combinations, but it's not something that TextEdit or potentially Pages can do. Unfortunately. The trick usually with that sort of thing is to actually use proper styles in a word processor, and so you've got everything is marked as a heading, and then you just change what the style's defined as, and all go and change them all anyway. It's only a problem if you're sort of turning something into that sort of structured style. Okay. Now, Robin had a question earlier how I did this magic trick of showing, in this case, all my text edit windows. I'm using a trackpad gesture for that particular one, which is configurable if you have a recent model Mac laptop or a Magic Trackpad on an external one. Dragging 3 or 4 fingers, depending on how you've configured it, down shows you all the windows for the current application. So I currently got...
Just the current application?
That's just the current application.
It won't show separate applications?
Up shows you all the applications. That's the current set of windows that I've got open on this desktop. So that's my, if I go back to there again, that's my normal view. So if I go drag down with 4 fingers, in my case, I get just the text edit windows. If I go drag up, I get all the windows from everything.
So
Okay,
how
so
many
that's
fingers is that by default?
3 or 4. I don't know what the default is off the top of my head. It's all configured under System Preferences Trackpad.
Can you do that
Yep.
with the mouse?
Yep.
4 is for desktops and 3 is for the other one.
It's configurable. So scroll and zoom, point and click, more gestures. Mission control. So you can set it up for 3 or 4. I changed it to 4 because I'm using 3 for something else. I didn't want to use 3 for that.
Is that what mission control is?
Yep. Mission control is actually this, not that one, that one.
Yeah.
Mission control is that thing, which gives you a view of all of your windows and all your applications that are open and all your desktops. So you can have multiple desktops set up, and I've actually got a separate screen which just has iTunes on it because I'm normally running iTunes, and just so I can listen to music while I'm working. And I like to have the application open all the time, but I don't want it occupying the whole screen. So I achieve that by actually having it on, as you can see there, it's on a different desktop. I'm using the sideways 4-finger gesture there to switch between desktops quickly. Oops. So if I go back to mission control again, you'll see my desktop 2 has 1 window on it. My desktop 1 has got lots of windows on it. So it's got everything else currently open with several text edit documents and Safari web pages and calendars.
Can you do those gestures on a mouse? Mouse?
There are keyboard shortcuts for them. I don't know off the top of my head what you can do with a mouse. I don't have a magic mouse plugged in, so I can't actually try and program it. But if you do, I think if you've got a magic mouse, which is the modern one with the touch-sensitive surface, then there are extra controls that appear in System Preferences mouse which give you some degree of control over what you can do with gestures on it, but it's not as flexible as a trackpad. So you can do a lot more gestures on a trackpad. But under System Preferences Mission Control, you will see that there are keyboard shortcuts down here for bringing up Mission Control, which is F9, showing you just the windows for the current application, which is F10, showing the desktop, which I haven't done yet, that's on a trackpad, it's a spread your fingers outwards gesture, which shows you desktop, which is very cluttered at the moment. I haven't done anything with that recently. And show dashboard, that's actually on the left-hand side for me. I'm surprised the dashboard's still there. Apple keeps threatening to get rid of it, but they haven't yet.
Irene keeps bringing that up, and I don't know how she does it. I think it must be a swipe on the mouse.
Yeah, accidental swap on them.
Yeah,
or it's actually one of the default gestures for squeeze the side buttons or click the middle button or something like that, and it was very annoying.
And arrow in the back, and she said, no, you can't.
Yep.
Why did this happen? I
Yep.
didn't know why it happened.
Yep.
I
Now,
just realised that.
unfortunately, if you most of the modern Mac keyboards, those keys are actually not directly accessible because the top row with function keys has actually got special functions like volume controls and things like that. So in order to get those ones, you've got to hold down the FN key. So FN F9 will give me mission control. So it's not the most obvious one. If you do have a modern keyboard, however, there is actually a dedicated key for it. It's on the F3 key on your laptops, like since about 2007 or a bit later possibly, and it's got a symbol that looks like a series of small boxes arranged in a funny shape. That's actually the mission control button. So if I just push F3, I get the same thing. And that, in conjunction with modifiers, gives you the other ones. So Command F3 shows you desktop. Option F3 brings up this mission control panel. I don't know what Control F3 shows you just your current application windows. So if I go back to text edit again, Control F3 will show me that thing. So there are keyboard shortcuts for it. It's just a matter of working out which ones are appropriate for your computer, which depending on which keyboard you've got. So have a look to see if you've got the mission control key, which has a symbol that sort of looks a bit like that on it. It's got like 3 boxes arranged in a funny symbol.
David, do they still do the keyboards map you used to be able to just get what your keys did.
Oh, the alternatives. Yeah. Key finder, wasn't it? Was it key finder?
You're not talking about that, are you?
Yes.
Yes.
On-screen keyboard, yeah, that doesn't. All that does is shows you all the symbols. So it doesn't help with the function keys. So the function keys have all got little icons on them which are supposed to remind you what they do. So you've got brightness up and down, mission control, launch pad, which I almost never use, so that one's a waste of space as far as I'm concerned. Keyboard brightness, track backwards, track forwards, pause and play, mute, volume down, volume up and eject, or other sort of the standard set on reasonably recent Mac keyboards. So those are sort of the major editing things I wanted to cover. Anybody have any other tips and tricks they'd like to elaborate on at this point or raise, or rather than me monopolising the entire session? No sharing?
We've always been very keen on the undo.
Yes, undo is a very nice command. I'm very happy with undo.
If something goes haywire, go undo.
Do you know about redo? If you undo too far, because normally most programs these days support undo more than once. So you undo, oops, I didn't want to undo that. You use the redo command, which is the opposite one.
Command Y. Years ago.
That's put away, or it varies a bit, but it might vary depending on the program.
That was going back to 7 and 8.
Yeah, Command Shift Z is the sort of the standard one there. Now, one other little shortcut I thought I'd mention. Imagine you're in the middle of this line and you want to delete the text to the right of the cursor rather than to the left of the cursor. The delete key goes backwards. If you want to go forwards, what I often see people do is go right arrow, right arrow, right arrow, delete, 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 or something like that. Like say I've added some extra characters there by mistake and I don't want them and I happen to be there. I think I want to get rid of those three, so I go right, 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 delete, delete, delete. Slow. There is actually on most Macs with a modern keyboard, there's actually a keyboard shortcut for forwards delete, if you haven't got a forwards delete key. If you have an extended keyboard, there's actually a dedicated key for it. It's got a symbol which is mentioned on your piece of paper, which is delete right. It looks like a box with an X in the middle with a rightward pointing triangle. And there's actually a key label with that symbol, which is a forward delete key on an extended Mac keyboard. If you don't have an extended Mac keyboard, Apple hides it with a combination of FN delete. So you hold down the function or FN key and you push the normal delete key and you get forwards delete. So you notice that's deleting the character after the cursor, not the character before the insertion point, not the character before the insertion point.
How does it know how much to delete forward?
Well, that's determined by what's selected. So if I've just got the simple insertion point there, it's one character. So if I go, don't want that, go away, accidentally brought that up. If you want to delete a whole chunk of stuff, like if I want to delete, there's actually no point. If you want to delete a whole bunch of stuff, there's no difference between forwards delete and backwards delete because it's a selection. You have to push the delete key anyway. It doesn't make any difference. If I go forwards delete, it does that. If I go backwards delete, it does that. The only time it matters is if you only have an insertion point and you want to delete a character at a time forwards. So then forwards delete means delete one word. What about option? No, that doesn't do anything. Wrong one. Try again. Oh, yes, that works. Option forward delete gives you delete an entire word. Option normal delete deletes an entire word. That's a useful one to know. Hadn't tried that before.
Option forward or option function?
Option delete, no function involved, deletes a whole word. I didn't have to select it first. I just discovered that one. So if I go option function delete, it deletes forwards one whole word at a time. Not one I've tended to use all that often, so they have all these weird things hidden in funny places. Now, what is some other ones that... Yep, Andrew's got one. Yep.
Okay, so you can put the airdrop into the dock. And to do this, you go into the system library.
Oh boy.
Core services, then you'll see Finder app, open up the contents. Inside that is an applications folder, and you've got all the little apps which are usually under the favourites side of your sidebar on the Finder window.
Right, okay, it's a bit complicated to get there. So what I've done is I've started by navigating, and this is again a case where I'm using lots of keyboard shortcuts. Here's another one that might be useful to people. If you are in a Finder window and you want to go into a folder, so I've currently got a folder highlighted, I use Command down arrow, which means go into folder in Finder. Command up arrow means go up a level. So it's like if you can imagine you're in a hierarchy, go up means, Command up arrow means go up one folder, Command down means go into the folder I've got selected. So I'm going into System, selecting it with a down arrow, Library,
Core services.
type in Core, and it highlights it.
Yep.
Core Services, go into that. Finder. Now this is the tricky bit. You need to look inside the Finder application, and the way to do that is you call up the contextual menu, which you normally get by going Control-click, which brings up the little menu of whatever you clicked on. So that is a useful shortcut to know as well, because that brings up commands that are applicable to whatever you just clicked on. So you hold down the Control key and you click on it. If you have a appropriately configured mouse or trackpad, you may have that set to right-click or two-finger tap or two-finger click, which can do the same thing. Once you've got that, in this case we go Show Package Contents, and then where do we go from there, Andrew? Go into the Contents folder.
Applications.
Applications.
And there you go, AirDrop.
And you can put that in your dock.
Yep, you just drag it into your dock.
Treat it like an application. Okay.
There you go. Click on it in the dock, and it starts up AirDrop.
Okay. I've never thought of needing that. I'm trying to think, why would I not need that if I go back to the home folder again? Because typically what I do is if I want to copy something to somebody, what I do is I drag it into AirDrop, and that brings it up. So having it in the dock doesn't really achieve anything, I don't think. You can't drag and drop to it even. You can click on it, but that doesn't... I'll find that one a bit dubious.
What about if you just want to turn AirDrop on to receive something?
Well, you need to get into it for that, but normally you have AirDrop sitting in the side panel of your Finder window. I think going to the trouble of putting it in your dock is a little bit obscure, but it's also available via the Go menu, and there's a keyboard shortcut for it, Shift-Command-R. So if you're in Finder, you can get to it with a keyboard shortcut, or sidebar, or the menu. So
And you don't have to turn it on to receive something.
depends on how you've got it set. If you have it set to,
If
if you've got it set to allow me to be discovered by no one, then it won't do anything until you turn it on. So if you normally have it turned off, then you do need to go into it and turn it on. But if you've got it set to contacts only, for example, and if somebody knows you, at least via their Apple ID, it will recognise them.
And you can also bring it up using the share menu too.
because your iPhone came up in my actual AirDrop just a minute ago.
Yep. There's Shane's iPhone right there. So mine's asleep right now, so it's not showing up. Okay. I'll close that one again and close that one again. Right. Let me think. Other obvious ones. Empty trash is sort of not as safe to play with. One useful one that people might not be aware of in applications that support the new, what's it called, versions, auto-saving versions mechanism, where they get rid of the save as command and give you the duplicate command instead. Hold down the option key and get save as command back again. Notice the menu changing there? And there's actually a keyboard shortcut for it. If you want to use save as in the applications that support this feature, Option Shift Command S is save as. Option Shift Command S is save as. Yep. And the other one I tend to use reasonably often there is close, and quit is another standard one as well. Command Q, Command W for close, and Command Q for quit also next to each other, which is sometimes annoying because I might go to close a window and accidentally hit Q instead, and I quit the application instead of closing the window, which is a bit annoying. Okay. Anybody else have any tips, things they've thought of? Sorry, screenshots. Not yet. No, that's a good one.
I had to look that up the last
Yep,
time.
screenshots. The main keyboard shortcuts for doing screenshots, again, not immediately obvious unless you go hunting for how to do it. Command, Shift, 4 or 3. 4, I'll do 4. 4 is the easy one. 4 is the entire screen. So Command, Shift, 4 gives you a screenshot of the entire screen.
It's the other way around.
No, other way around, sorry. Command Shift 3 is the entire screen, thank you. And what it does is, if you can find it, it puts the screenshot on your desktop. I've got too many of them right now. No, that's not it. I've got several. There it is, right in the bottom right-hand corner in this case. So there is my screenshot. Yes, that's it. But did you know, I'll come back to that one actually. So if you want to take a screenshot of just a rectangle, you use Command Shift 4. And what that does is, if you can see my cursor wandering around over here, it changes it to a crosshairs. And then you can basically move to where you want and drag a rectangle, and it will take a screenshot of just that bit when you let go. Okay. A variation on that one, if you want to take a screenshot of just one window without having to aim for the corners and so on, if you first press Command Shift 4, so you get the crosshairs, then you let go of it, no keys, push the space bar, it changes to a camera, and now as it moves around the screen, it highlights a window, and you can take a screenshot of a particular window by clicking the mouse while over the highlighted window. And notice it doesn't need to be the front one, you can actually bury one, dig it out from behind something else and take a photo of it, in effect. Okay?
So what was that one again?
Command Shift 4,
Nice.
let go of them, then press the space bar, which changes it to a camera. It's actually a toggle, so if you push space bar again, it goes back to the crosshairs, and space bar takes it back to the window selector. And once you've got the right mode, you point to the window you want and click the mouse or trackpad button, and that takes a screenshot of whatever it is that you want. So Command Shift 4, space, point to the window you want, click. That's how you do a window shot.
So it doesn't have to be a window that you can see the whole thing?
No, you just need to be able to see enough of it to be able to point to it.
Ah, so it will do either the top or the bottom.
It'll even do the menu bar, though. Why that might be useful to you, I don't know. But in fact, you can even have a menu open and do a screenshot of the menu with the same method. So that's sometimes handy. There is a variation for both of those. If you don't want the screenshot to be on a file on the desktop, you actually want it to be on a clipboard because you want to paste it somewhere. You hold down the Control key, I think. I'm trying to remember, I haven't done it recently. Control, click. If I now go into Pages, so I'll just double check that.
Was that Control click 3 or 4?
Yep, that was it. So if you hold down the Control key, that's Control, not Command, at the point you click or you press Command Shift 3 or whatever it might be, it actually modifies it. So rather than saving the file on the desktop, it means put it on the clipboard, so you can then paste it somewhere. So rather than then having a file you got to drag and drop and deal with afterwards, all you have is an image on the clipboard, and then you can paste that into a document or not if you've got the wrong one. That makes sense?
It is just an image.
It's an image. It's a PNG, I think, or something like that. So normally, so if I want, say, a rectangle here, and on the clipboard, I can just come over here and go, hold down the Control key and drag and let go, and then go paste. And I got just that bit.
But it's not text.
It's an image. It's always an image. It's a picture of what's on the screen. Similarly, if I want the entire screen, I can use Command Shift 3 with Control as well. So Shift Control Command 3 does a screenshot to the clipboard. So there's that. Paste it. So rather than littering my desktop with screenshot files that I don't remember what they are, I can just use the clipboard. That cover it?
How did you paste that?
Just a second, sorry, Graham. What was that, Margaret?
When you still got it in crosshairs fashion, you dragged it into the new window. And how do you organise the paste command?
Well, that's just using the standard keyboard shortcut or the command for paste. So if I want to drag a rectangle, hold down the Control key and let go, it will copy that selection onto the clipboard.
Yes.
And now if I use Edit, Paste, it will paste what I just dragged across. So all it's done is it's...
But you pre-organised it to paste it there?
No, I didn't. Well, I just happened to do wherever I was editing, so
You put a cursor there.
I'm already in the middle of an editing document, so
So it will paste it into the document that's on top.
well, whichever application you're in. Of course, you go and, like if I need to go and switch this window to find the one I want, go Command-Shift-4 space, Control-click to get a shot of that. Now I go back to my Pages document. Here's the window I'm interested in showing you. Type this in. And now I go paste.
Yes, that was the bit that I didn't see.
Yeah, and I'm often doing exactly that when I'm writing emails to help people with something. I'll explain what it is that I'm doing. I will go to the window myself, take a copy of it using that method, and then go into back to the email again,
And you can have the
add the text, paste it in the body of the email at that point, and continue typing.
And you can have something highlighted on it when you take a photo as well, can't you?
Yes, usually yes. So I happen to be using a Pages document in this case, but it could be an email or anything else that I can paste an image into. What was that you were going to say, Graham? Quick View. Oh, yes, that's a good one.
Just what you were showing before, you had a whole screenshots on your desktop and you couldn't work out which is the...
No, I was looking for them by date. I was tabbing through them.
If you go Command-N and find it, open up and find it window, and then click on the date thing, it'll go right at the top and it's easy to find.
I go into a Finder window, so Graham is pointing out that I can go to Desktop, actually look at the desktop in the Finder window rather than on the desktop. Date modified will show me them all, but that doesn't help much because they're not alphabetically organised. It's actually better to organise them by name in this case because they're all alphabetically organised like so.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter which, just click on one of them and go quick.
And now I'll demonstrate Quick View, which is a very useful feature of Finder. You select a file, you press the space bar, and it shows you the contents of that file as a separate window. So that basically pops open a window showing you the contents of what's currently selected. While you have that window open, Finder is still active, even though it doesn't look like it. So I can now go up and down this Finder window using the arrow keys, and it changes the contents of the Quick View window to show me what it is that are in my screenshots. So I'm doing using down arrow. That's the software I was trying to deal with, which is causing me problems. What's that? Don't remember what that is. Oh, it's somebody's photo. So I'm out of the screenshots now. So I can just browse through the up and down arrow keys to see what all those were. So,
click on them just with the mouse too.
yeah. Sorry?
You can click on them with the mouse. Oh, you've got to click where you quickly open.
Oh, to open it.
Shift it out of the way so you get...
Oh yeah, you can drag it. It's a draggable window, so you can see what you've got.
You can use the cursor to click on another file.
Yes. I see what you mean now. Like that. Yep.
Okay, but it's very good for podcasts that you don't necessarily want to keep in iTunes. Because for the podcast you might see it on a website, but it might be when you want to listen, so you can take a download that you can always delete later, and then use Quick View to listen to the whole thing when you want to.
So Quick View isn't just for still images, you can look at videos with it as well and things like that.
You can play sound.
Word documents, pages.
Sometimes I have something that I've only got a little screen, and I think I want a screenshot of that, but the thing I want is bigger than the screen, so what do you use to do that?
If the thing you want is bigger than the screen, you can't take a screenshot.
The item I want doesn't fit on my screen. I know there's more to it than is on the screen. When I take a screenshot, I only know how to get what's on the screen.
Right. Well, if it's a window that's bigger than the screen, let me see if I can find an example. What happens? There's an example. So let's say I wanted a shot of that entire window.
Yes.
What happens if I press Command-Shift-4, space, and then click on that? I'll use the Control key method just to make it easier. I'm going to select that entire window, copy it. Now go into Pages. I'll delete that because I don't want it. And paste it. It doesn't work. It only gives you the view of what you can see on the screen. So you don't get the entire window, you get You don't get the entire content of the window, you get the current view of the window, which is just the visible part. So there is no way of using screenshots to see something that doesn't physically fit on the screen in some way. It's got to fit in you can only get the window at best.
Depending on the settings, use the plus and minus. You can use the resizing thing. Sometimes
Yes,
you
sometimes
can shrink the window.
you can make it smaller or make it fit, but there are ways of doing.
Can you snag it?
There's lots of ways of doing what you want. If you've got a web page, for example, that you wanted to save, what you can usually do is go File, Save As, and it's got a command in there for saving it as a web archive. And a web archive tries to save the content of the web page, including all the elements needed to draw it again, and that gives you something you can view again offline. Page source usually won't work because that'll only give you the raw content of that one page. It won't give you all the images and everything like that. The other option you might want to use is save it as a PDF. That's one I tend to use less often for web pages because it ends up breaking it in silly places, but also the website has some control over what it looks like. So in this case, if I come and tell it to print this web page, you can click on PDF, save as PDF, and save a PDF copy of the web page. So
that's a really helpful thing.
Yep.
I use that a lot.
Yep. But the only catch is, of course, it's not necessarily that's unnecessary blank page at the end, but it's at least got all the content in one page in this case. So if you've got the preview there, you can just decide which bits you want and choose from one to one and only bother to save the first page. But the degree to which that works varies depending on the website. That one's not too bad, but some websites have I got anything open which might cause problems? That one's actually not too bad, but some web pages basically end up with a large page full of black because they do give you the entire coloured background and you can't really print it properly. But it's okay just saving a PDF. Were you suggesting something else there?
Yeah, one other thing you might like to look at, if you're in like Safari, find a page that's got a photograph on it.
I'm missing it, but there it is.
If you just make the page a little smaller so you can actually see the desktop.
Good luck with that. What I might do, I will hide Safari, there we go, yep.
Click on that photograph and drag it onto the desktop.
Right, so that photograph I can just drag and drop over here. And we'll download that one image off the web page. So yeah, that's a useful little shortcut. And I'm just using quick look again there to see what it looks like.
Save that? Oh yes, it's got a little box on the arrow, so you
Yep. Select that again. Yep, so that's a useful way of just grabbing things off a web page. It doesn't work for everything. That's a button. I don't know what that will do. Saves did it actually save the background image? Yep.
Isn't it easier just to click copy and copy it? Right.
Well, you can't necessarily click on it because it might be a button or something. Like I can actually control click on that image and choose save image.
Copy image.
So in effect, it's a copy image or save image. It's a shortcut for doing the same thing. But some websites won't let you do that. It depends on how they've got it set up.
Or else fails this command support.
Yeah, if no other way works, you just use this method. drag a rectangle across it. So often when we're putting things in capital Apple, we'll end up going to Apple's website and take a screenshot of a piece of the Apple web page so we've got the right image.
One way of stopping photographs from getting sliced up if you're having problems is to use reader view if you've got it, and that
won't be on that side.
That may produce gaps because it doesn't split photos, and it often uses more
Let me
pages.
find something that's readable.
But it does preserve the photos intact.
There, okay. If in Safari, reader view, if it's available, will show up as that little icon to the left of the address bar. So if I click on that, it hides all the extraneous stuff and gives you something which looks more like a printable or more readable image. If you try and print while in that state, does it actually look any better? It probably does, actually. If I go out of that again, yeah, it does. It's actually doing a pretty good job without it. So,
It depends on
but that depends on the website.
whether it's better or worse.
basically Apple's.
Most websites have bars down both sides.
Yeah, exactly. They make it hard. That is better in reader view for printing. It's got rid of some of the extraneous stuff, but it's not a huge difference. Apple's done a good job in the first place.
It also gets rid of all those things that you end up touching. Touch screen.
David, taking that same concept with the photograph, if you highlight some text on there and clear the window so you can see the desktop again.
Yep.
And drag that text, hold it and drag, and it'll drop onto your desktop. And
That's a text
now-
clipping.
So you can use that.
It's cute.
It's selectable text.
And that's actually a drag and droppable chunk of text. You can actually drop it into any document, and it behaves a bit like a clipboard. It's a saved chunk of text that you can reuse. So it's a handy one. And that isn't just for websites, but it's if I can do the same thing in a text editor document. For example, if I triple click that paragraph and find my desktop and drag and drop it, I get a text clipping on my desktop. So
It's always a text clipping.
that's a feature which has been there for a while. I remember those being introduced somewhere around Mac OS 8. Yep.
So what's the format? Is it a clipboard?
Text clipping is a specific file format that behaves a bit like a clipboard that you can then drag and drop into other documents.
In Safari, this thing's symbol.
Yep. And Graham's just reminded me that we are videoing the meetings so that we can, once we publish the links, which we hopefully will do once I've got past my extremely busy week, then we'll have you can look all this up on the video review afterwards. Okay. Anybody else have any more things they've thought of in passing?
Has anybody used Snagit?
Snagit. Now that's used to download websites or something like that.
It's to get a whole item. It doesn't, more than shows on the screen. I've seen it recommended on a family history email list.
Screen capture.
So somebody said they wanted to take a screenshot, but they couldn't get the whole thing because it wasn't all showing at once. And the answer was, get Snagit. To get the whole.
Okay, it's commercial software. It's got extra imaging. It's basically an editor with screen capture features, not just a simple screen capture tool by the looks of it. It can also record videos, so you can actually set up a rectangular area on your screen and start recording, and whatever goes on through that section of the screen will get recorded. So it's quite complicated. It's got lots of features. I've got another program called ScreenFlow which has similar feature set, another one called Snaps Pro 10 which has similar features. There's quite a few of them. How much does it cost? Looks like $50 US. It's not cheap. So there may be cheaper options which do something similar. So that it's not one I've actually used, but I have got similar ones already. What's the other one I've got? Yeah, I've got one called Snaps Pro 10, which is mapped itself to Command Shift 5, which is logically next to the other ones, and that gives you screen capture, object capture, selection capture, and movie capture features. So it's got yet more ways of doing things. So that one is, if I go objects, what's that pointing to? I haven't actually used this feature for a while, so I'd have to find out how it works exactly. So I've used it for screen capture, but I've left it installed, but basically haven't touched it for so long because I haven't really needed it. But it's something I got as part of a software bundle a while ago. But I have occasionally used it for video capturing a chunk of the screen, so it actually records a video, that sort of thing. I haven't bothered to use it for capturing an object on the screen though, so it may have that capability where you want to capture more than what you can see, but effectively it's got to scroll the window down and look at the rest of it to do it, so I'm not sure how they do that exactly, especially if it's animated.
The sort of thing Leslie's talking about is Papers Plus, where you've got a column that goes down twice the length of your screen, and you know it's there, but then you can scroll it, but you can't get it all to copy.
Yeah, so there's bound to be tools for that, but it's not something built in that I know of anyway. Telecaststream.net. Just find ScreenFlow and see whether it mentions it, because that's even more expensive, but it's quite capable software. It's designed for products. ScreenFlow, there it is. It's actually video editing and screen recording, but its cheapest price is $129 US, so it's even more expensive. It's actually primarily aimed at people who create tutorials for things on the screen. It's actually a full video editor.
Something quite simple for a simple lady, simple person.
So that's one I've already got, but I haven't used seriously. But yes, I had to have a hunt around for Mac utility to capture entire window.
I have a very simple one called Grab, which I think was free.
Well, there's one built into the Mac called Grab.
Yes,
It's worth mentioning.
I don't know if it does.
Grab won't do that, but basically Grab is the program behind the built-in keyboard shortcuts for screen capture. One thing that Grab can do, which isn't a feature of the keyboard shortcuts, is a time delay. So what you can do with Grab is you can actually say, I want to capture something you can't actually easily do and do the keyboard shortcut at the same time. So you can say, I want to start a timer, and in 10 seconds it's going to do a screen capture. And then you do whatever it is you need to do to get to the point you want to take a picture of. So if you can arrange that, that's actually a useful feature. The other three are the same features you get with keyboard shortcuts.
Go further down, there's capture windows which are larger than the screen. Yeah.
Ah.
It's an old hint. Macworld.com's hints are old stuff. Command Shift 4.
Then press the space bar. Need to painfully see.
Yeah, no, that's just saying if the window is bigger than the screen or taller or something, that'll capture the entire window. That's not what you want. It was off the edge of the screen. It doesn't actually scroll the window for you as well.
The item above that talked about Snagit and scrolling. If you go
Right,
back
okay, I'll go back in a second. I just want to see what else this says. Is there anything else? That's the clipboard one I mentioned. Camera. No, that's talking about Snack Pro 10. Just seeing if there's any. They're just arguing over it, and I haven't found any detailed further bits. But the back one. That was.
Snagit is the only software I found for me.
Didn't see it mentioned Snagit there.
The scrolling.
Screenshot of scrolling.
There it is,
windows.
Snagit. Take a screenshot of a scrolling window that includes that soft super user.
That's important.
Yep. Little Snapper. No, that won't do it. Somebody mentioned Snagit is the only software I found to Mac that can do this for scrolling application windows as well as web pages. But again, that's just one feature of a rather expensive piece of software. So yes, it would probably do it, but it's not something you might want to spend roughly 80 New Zealand dollars on just to get that one capability. And it's certainly not one I'm interested in spending money on just to try to see if it can do that.
Because quite often you're doing something, you come across a related article, and you don't want to sit and read the whole thing through then, because that would be an interruption. You want to come back to it later. So that's why you want to get the whole article.
Right, not necessarily, because what you can do is add to your reading list. Like if I or open things in tabs, that's what I tend to do for dealing with that situation. If I want to go and look up that piece of software, for example, right now if I click on it, it will replace this window with that link. So I have to then come back to it to get to the rest of it. But rather than clicking on it, if I command click it, it opens a new tab or a new window depending on how your web browser is configured, because it isn't there anymore, so that particular page doesn't exist. So I'll just find a better example. If I go back to here again, say I want to keep this search page open, and I want to look at that one there without losing the search page. If I hold down Command click and click on that link, it opens a new tab, leaving this one open. and then that gives me that page, and I can still go back to the previous tab and see what I was reading before without losing it, including losing where I was scrolled to. So I can come down here and command click on that one, and it opens another new tab. And I can come down here and say, oh, that one looks interesting, I'll click on that one. So you can see I'm still retaining the context, but I've opened these tabs with additional articles to read later on. And I can come and look at those at my leisure, and then when I finish with them, I can just close those, and I've still got the original one sitting there. The other way you can approach that is to use the reading list feature. If you want to come back and look at a particular page later, you can control click on it and add to my reading list. And then your reading list is available. I so rarely use this feature, I can't even remember where they put it. There it is. There's add to reading list. So how do you actually view it? Is it hiding in there? No, that's that thing. I'm not actually sure where they hide it.
It's the other one on the other side of your right arrow, David.
It was in the sidebar somewhere, isn't it? Yeah, there it is. Yeah. I normally have the sidebar closed. So that's your reading. No, that's the bookmarks. There's your reading list there. So if you add something to your reading list, you can ignore that. It will give you basically pages you've saved to come back and look at later on. So the distinction there is if you're intending to look at it soon, I use Command Tab. If it's something I might want to read in future, I'll add it to my reading list and come back and look at this and, oh, I've completely forgotten about half this stuff. If it's something I expect to use more than once, I'll give a bookmark to it instead and then go and look at my bookmarks later on. And I've organised my bookmarks by categories here. So I've got general Apple stuff, specifically OS X stuff, sometimes broken down by version, iOS stuff, and a few other bits and pieces I tend to keep in my favourites bar so I can easily get to them in a hurry.
One of the things I do quite often is if I don't have enough time in Chrome, I save all the tabs in my bookmarks. And so I keep a folder, current folder, of my readings.
Yep. You can also do that in Safari. There is actually a
Can you go into
history somewhere.
If you can
Bookmarks.
If you can
Add
remember
bookmarks to
which
these
day.
8 tabs.
Yep, it's almost the same name, but yeah.
Yeah, similar idea. So if you actually collect a collection of windows you want to remember, you can actually collect them as a folder together, and then you can actually have entire folders in
How do
here.
you find them? Oh, back in.
If you create them like I've done with these ones, you can then open all those 4 at once in a new tab. So you can save a bookmark to them and then reopen them all at the same time. So that's a useful one as well. So saving, there's lots of sort of shortcuts if you hunt around, and the web browser's got slightly different ways of doing it, but they all pretty much are copied the same feature set from each other. So they're all able to do that. Okay. I think we're running out of time.
We're running out of stickability.
Yep, exactly. So I'm running out of energy as well. So shall we call tonight there? Dennis did have a tip he wanted to share, but we can possibly look at that as part of the help desk next month or something like that, the Q&A stuff. Oh, if it's suitable, yeah. Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, Derek.